This is Season 4, Episode 7 of Mastering the RPG, a tabletop RPG podcast all about upping your game. Doesn't matter if you are a game master or player, you'll find advice, ideas, and some strong opinions. Our episode tonight is a casual conversation, GMing a convention game, or may I see your tickets, please? Welcome to Mastering the RPG. Like I said, we're all about maximizing your game with advice, ideas, cool stuff found, and occasionally some strong opinions, but that's just us. I'm Carl with my co-hosts Eric and Chris. You'll find all our information about the show at masteringtherpg.com, or you can send us an email with feedback or questions at gamemaster@masteringtherpg.com. So it's good to be back with everyone after our special episode, talking about some more game-related stuff. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing all right. Still a heat wave here, but luckily most of my gaming is online, so I don't have to trudge out into the Arizona-like desert to go anywhere. Yeah, my game's going good. I haven't had to get a new player in, so it's always interesting with that, right? Like how the most ideal way to get them in, and you really have to work with them more to like really sync their backstory up with where you are in the narrative. So that's always kind of a little bit of an interesting challenge to do it good, I think, or to do it
sure.
so it feels natural.
I also avoid going out into the Arizona desert by not leaving my house as much as I can. So that works out for me. Apparently it's still upwards of 110 outside, which is a little bit too hot on the direct sun anyway. But no games for me. I actually haven't played a game in a long time. I've been work. The Foundry store should be opening soon, so we're going to put a lot of effort into that. And hopefully more time for fun later.
Very cool. I guess I'm the odd man out. It was like 43 degrees this morning when I went to work at dark 30 when I get in. And then it was about 65 when I came home. So we're about to we're hitting the weather where I can't use my convertible anymore. So very disappointing on that. I've been, we've been running our game. Had to skip one because haven't had our players all together, and timely for this episode is I'm getting ready for Gamehole Con, and that's when we record that, it'll be in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure when this episode comes out, but getting ready. So it'd be very cool. So, well, tonight we do have some email. Yes, we have some email. Richard writes in. Now, Richard, he gave us some really good questions in an email previously that we answered in a special episode that was all about answering those questions. So he's just thanking us for taking the time to answer the questions and, kind of giving a little bit of kudos. We won't necessarily read the whole thing. Otherwise, we might blush. And so we appreciate, and he signed up for Patreon, so we appreciate that too. Thank you so much, Richard. Yeah, your questions were awesome. We really had a good time doing that episode, right, guys? A lot of good stuff, a lot of good information. I hope others got a chance to learn from that. And so again, keep the questions coming, Richard. We appreciated them. And speaking of a question, Rob sent in an email saying, "Hello, MTR. I would like to know your thoughts. How long is too long between adventures? I'm currently running every 2 weeks. My players often do not remember what was going on in the prior session. So I ask, what is ideal? Once a month, every 2 weeks? Or I should say once a week, every 2 weeks, or once a month? I do realize maybe I'm not making the highlights as memorable. Maybe I'm lacking in my A, description, B, organization, or C, focus on details. But I also, at times, get a bit flustered. Also, I have requested multiple times for my players to write a brief, what happened, or a chat in Discord to help trigger memories of prior events. I know I could write a brief, but I feel as though this is not too much to ask. This is not too much to ask of the group. This is the best I have for adjudication, Eric. I think there you go. So, and he says always one episode behind. So, Rob, thanks for the question. I'll open it up to the panel there. Since it's as close as we're going to get to an adjudication question right now, I'm going to open it up to Eric. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there's multiple components to this. I think that the how long is too long between adventures about week versus every other week versus once a month. It's whatever you're comfortable with as game master, 100%. Like,
Yep.
if you are honest with yourself and you think, for me, every other week is how I can keep up the game, keep up all my, I don't have to feel stressed about it. I don't have to feel like I'm regretting doing it. All those type of things with burnout. That's the best. That is the best, right? Because if you burn out and you're getting stressed about it and you're stop enjoying it, then there's going to be no game and nobody's happy about that. So I would say that I think every other week is completely reasonable. Some games are once a month. That's just what they are, I think. But that's, everybody kind of has, if they have busy schedules, that's what they normally are. Obviously, an ideal for players would probably be once a week as far as remembering stuff. I mean, even in our games with Carl, when we skip a week, we often kind of forget stuff. So it's not you. I think it's just these times now that we're in, and post-COVID, all of our memory got a little bit
we all have
crazy.
brain fog. We all have brain fog now.
Yeah. So yeah. I definitely think every other week is fine, especially if that's what when you first got your players, you were like, I think I want to do this. Like for my game, I was like, I'm planning on doing it once a week, but there's times I'm going to skip weeks. Like that's just how it is, because I want to have the flexibility of, okay, I'm not feeling prepared enough and I'm not feeling it. So I need to take an extra week. Right. So that's definitely on that point.
Yeah. I don't think, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was going to say, we have ours, tentatively every week, but with adult schedules, it's really once a month. Like, somebody has to cancel or postpone. So I think, as Eric said, whatever you can do is good. We forget too. We forget week to week. We forget when it's a month. I think it's more putting in a couple mechanisms to capture things if that's a frequent thing. But with the right group, I think the group of people is more important for our situation at least than the frequency. I'd rather wait a little bit for the right people than less more frequent with the wrong people.
Yeah, I think the timing is really dependent on the group. Again, some folks really want that experience every week, and you're got the time to really dig in and prep each week. Sometimes it's better every 2 weeks because people get a little downtime. They can, because there could be some very emotional highs and things, and so that's fine too. And some games are just a bunch of friends who can never get together. Except for maybe once a month, and that's perfectly fine too. I think getting to the point of why you're having a hard time with making the highlights memorable is I don't think it's anything really that you're doing wrong. I mean, I think it's just a matter of sometimes people just don't capture the details as well as they could, and memories fade, and people have they've got other things on their mind, and so it just they don't grok it completely. One thing you can do is, if you really want to have those details, is after the game, just take yourself. All the players have kind of gone after the game. Take a few minutes yourself and capture some of those notes, the things that you thought the highs were, the lows were, those interesting moments, and then you capture them and just down. Now, I don't do that because I've actually been really fortunate to have players who are excited about taking notes. And what I do is I reward them. I give them a Benny for whoever can give the pitch. And so suddenly it's now, hey, let's all get together and try to trigger our memories and think about what happened. And they start playing off of each other. The only one person gets to Benny, but they start playing off each other. And now they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. Now I remember that. Oh yeah, we did do that. We did do that. And so that seems to work out well as well. But just take a moment to yourself after the game and just capture some of those details if you really want to be able to walk everybody through them in the next session, regardless of how long between sessions it is.
On top of that, like you said, that you feel frustrated, and that's absolutely valid to feel that way about people not responding to you. You're just asking them to take some notes. Like that is just absolutely, you're totally justified in feeling that way because, the game masters are doing most of the work for sure. So on top of what Carl was saying, I mean, most games that I've been in, so in my game, I've actually been like, somebody's the note taker, you get an extra Benny per session, period. And there's just public notes. So like, yeah, reward somebody, like ask the group, hey, if there can be a note taker that wants to do it every single session, just give them an extra Benny, or whatever game you're in, give them a meta currency, right, as a reward. Another game I'm in, it's just like whoever that week, well, there's a separate Discord channel for the log, the session log, and that changes week to week generally. then reward that person. Like, so that can be not all on one player, but I think definitely rewarding them. And finally, I just wanted to wrap this up with the whole like every other week versus a week. Like, yeah, like I said, players, it's good for ideal is every week, but if I would rather a game master. And now, as a player, I would rather a game master be really honest, with what they can do. Because I'm in another game where we're supposed to play once a week, kind of like what Chris said, but it often gets canceled and at the last minute, like all the time. And personally, I'd rather it be like a one every other week or a once a month game that I didn't constantly have to like change my schedule every single time. Like I always am thinking we're going to play and then we don't. So I'd rather the game master be more honest with themselves about what they can actually do. So yeah,
that's fair. Yep. Okay. Good answers. Nice thoughts on that. I appreciate you guys. Rob, thanks again for the email. I hope that helped answer the questions. If not, and you got some other thoughts, just let us know. We're here to hear it out, and we love email. We really do. So let's go ahead and get on to that main topic. All right, so we've got the main topic tonight is all about just a casual convo. We haven't done a ton of prep on this. It's just kind of talking about GMing, a convention game, all the little pieces that go into it. And Eric is going to take the lead on this one. He hasn't run a convention game. He probably should sometime, but he hasn't. So he's going to take the ropes of this one. Go ahead, take her away.
Yeah, I mean, not only have I not run a convention game, I've never been to a board game tabletop convention. So when this came up, I was like, let me just interview. We're going to do this in the interview style, kind of how we do the system dives. Yeah. Because I am also curious about these things. So both Carl and Chris, like Chris, you just did a con not that long ago, right? For even some official Savage World stuff. And like we said, Carl is about to run a con. I think most of pretty much all your games are filled out. So you guys do a lot of con stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I think number one is just like, why do you even want to do a con game? Like, what are your main likes and dislikes in running a convention game? I mean, are there any like particular things compared to just running a normal game? I guess is what I'm asking. So Chris, what is it to you? Like, why do you like running con games so much?
So I like running con games because it gets me to introduce to new people, like people that I don't normally see. Otherwise, I'm in kind of a little echo chamber or small circle. So I like it for that aspect. I like to give back to the gaming community because when I first started, I had to rely on games from people at conventions to kind of get into systems and learn how it worked. And so I like to return that with my time now. I since I sell modules, it's a good place to test them out or to get people's feedback, see reactions and see how they go. It's conventions in a whole or as a whole are good for like networking if you're working in the industry or just socializing in general, just to meet people with similar interests. So I'd say those are probably the biggest reasons I like it.
Do you have any kind of like big dislikes about it that you find yourself?
Yes. So it can be, and I'm not saying it's all the time, but there's frustrations logistically with just conventions in general. Every one of them has some kind of scheduling or space issue that is annoying, at least during the con, but they are typically not so annoying you don't remember what they are a week later. It's just like frustrations while you're running it. Some of the people at conventions can be a little bit in conflict with personalities, I will say, because maybe that's the only place they ever play and they're not like daily players. So they might not have like a lot of the social cues that people will have if they're playing with you every week.
Yeah.
I'd say that those are probably the biggest two irritation points with convention games.
What about you, Carl?
What I really love about doing convention games is I play almost entirely online nowadays. I don't have a local gaming group. And so it's a chance to get, personal with folks, see their faces, you got a handful of bennies, tossing bennies across the table. Being able to, when I game master in person, I stand up and I like wander. I don't just sit there like I do on my computer staring at a camera. And so it's much more interactive and it's just fun to take your ideas and kind of shell them out to strangers you've never met before and have them enjoy something that you're very passionate about. So I always tell the story. I started going to Gen Con in '93. And a couple years in, I was just a player. I game mastered at home, but I always just wanted to play at the convention. And the game masters kept canceling on me all the time. Back then, I
Oh.
guess you could get away with it easier. And so I said, you know, I'm going to game master because then I know I'll have a game in this slot. I guarantee you I'll have a game in this slot. So,
Do you have any kind of big dislikes, like Chris was saying?
I think my big dislikes are people who don't recognize that there's a bunch of different people that for example, my games, I'm always saying, you know, new players are welcome. And if you
Yeah.
get a player who's like played for years and years and years and knows everything about the system and every last detail, and they get frustrated because you got new players who are asking questions, it's like, remember, everybody's different at the convention. So people
Yeah.
who don't have, respect's not the right term, but don't have the ability to understand that everyone's different at the convention. Everybody comes with a different perspective, different skill level,
Yeah.
different likes, dislikes, you know, stuff like that.
And it's not just about them, it's like about the group. And
yeah.
So I guess the tip there for both of you seems like, just if you're going to do a convention, just be ready to deal with, you know, you don't know who you're going to deal with. So you might have a kind of a player who's not really gelling with everybody else or causing some disruptions, but it doesn't seem like it's ever that big of a deal. Like, it's never to the point of where, you know, you guys want to like quit, or it's like so disruptive that.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think I've ever had a player who's
Yeah.
been so disruptive that I've had to ask them to leave, or
Okay.
you know. So usually it's just somebody who's a little too over the top, who's a little bit
Yeah.
too, you know, too.
Okay. And now I will say, I forgot to say this at the top. I will say that we've done, like, again, this is just going to be specifically about conventions, like because we've done, like, you know, check out our one shot episode. Like, check out our where we talk about props more in detail. There's like a bunch of episodes that are kind of floating around convention games. You know, like we've talked about different subjects. So yeah. Anyways, let's get back to it. So I think one of the things that I thought of is, like, what are actually the first steps? Like, beyond the gaming portion of this, like, technically, like, what's the actual process like for actually getting into a convention to run a game? Carl, I'll start with you first. So how do you actually go from, you know, Carl's at home to like being in GameholeCon and running a game? Like, how do you set that up?
Are you talking the mechanism with the convention to
Yes,
actually?
like what, like, yeah, exactly. How do you get into be a game master at a convention? Like, how does that happen?
It's super simple. They always have just an application. You say, here's a game I want to run. Here's the description. Here's the system. Here's the number of people, and you just submit it, and it's just that easy. There's no. And this is true of Gen Con, GameholeCon, Midwest Convention. I'm not sure about others. Some others may be more picky, but it's really generally just people. Game masters are always a hot commodity in most scenarios, right? So there are fewer of them than there are players, and so I've never seen a convention where there's been a high bar that say, you know, you have to, you know, have industry experience in order to be able to do it. It's
show
really
a resume. Or something.
Yeah, there's no resume to this sort of thing. So so the mechanism, super simple. They just have now the most important thing though is I'll say it's able to get in, but make sure you read the GM guidelines, the code of conduct, all those sorts of things. There can be gotchas in there, like at Gen Con, the way you handle generic tickets, the way you handle tickets from people coming to your game, what you should do and how you should. They explain it all in there, and you can get you can, you know, lose privileges, I guess, if you like take a generic ticket over somebody who's got a regular ticket. So just make sure you read the convention guidelines and you understand them. It's easy to get in, but you know, some are much more strict than others as far as, you know, following a code of conduct.
But usually the guidelines and the code of conduct, like it's visible. It's not like you have to search for it in the website. Like
they always
usually
publish
kind of
those right out front. Right out front.
Chris, do you agree with everything Carl said there about that stuff?
They're super simple to onboard you. They're always looking. You can often get in free for that day or the entire convention, depending on how much you run.
Oh, you mean like, so you can go to the convention as a fan and do all your stuff for free because you're doing a GM?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe it's a 12-hour day and you spend 4 hours running a game, but you get 8 hours to wander
So another
something
reason
like
to
that.
like GMing a con game, right?
Yeah.
Is that if
Well,
you money wise?
well,
Okay.
GameholeCon requires 12 hours of gaming to
Oh
get your
wow.
badge for free. So you do have to GM a bit, at least for some
Well, Carl, is that
conventions.
12 hours over the whole convention,
Yes,
or
yes, not
and
12
then you get
hours
a
straight.
badge for the whole convention? Okay. Yeah, yeah, 12
Not in
hours
a
straight,
row.
just hook you up to the magic juice machine. Okay, but yeah, so Chris, on top of that, do you have any actually tips? I know we talked about it's easy to get them, but like, tips as far as like getting the most primo spots or getting the best times. I think, right? Because I think spot and time also matter as a game master. Correct?
Yes. My tip for that would be to email and ask a human. You're going to fill out a form, but find out whoever's running that schedule and just email them and tell them what you'd like. And because probably only 1% are even going to do that, the likelihood you're going to get what you ask for is very high.
Okay. And do you have any other like tips as far as like, I mean, when you're doing a con game, I mean, there's assuming there is the kind of game section, right? Like that's mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Does location matter? Like, do times matter?
Location matters for sound purposes. If you know the room you're going to be in, sound echoes in different ways. So if you can tell what's by you, what's behind the wall, if you're getting your own enclosed room, if you're 2 feet from another table, what kind of table you have. There's round tables, there's square tables, some seat 6, some seat 10. I mean, if you need it, this is all optional logistic information, which you will get through no matter what. But I mean, if you are prepared and study and look that up, yeah, you could definitely get a better table, a better room situation, a better noise, better lighting situation, a better traffic situation. Like all those things can potentially, but if you're new, I wouldn't worry about any of that. It's going to work fine.
Yeah,
either way.
just kind of go for it. But okay.
Yeah, and honestly, I just do. Usually, they have like a preferred spot and a secondary time, so I just make sure that I'm flexible around the times that I want to do things, and I love the idea of sort of poking the people to see if you can get a particular place, because I know there's some people who want to play things like 10 candles and they really need more of a private space to be able to pull that off, and so I totally get that. However, I'm just like I just go through the portal, and usually it turns out okay. With GameholeCon though, there was the Savage Alliance, shout out to them, where they pulled up a bunch of games together, all Savage Worlds, and then they published them all at the same time so that we could all kind of get the same space and have the convention say, oh, these guys really, as a group, they're really a big deal, so let's give them the best space we can, or give them good space. So kind of tying yourself into an organization like that's a good thing too.
Okay. And what about times? Like, imagine like certain times of the day are better than others.
8 o'clock.
Yes.
8 o'clock on a Sunday is a bad day. You'll have a bad day if you're doing 8 a.m. on a Sunday.
Definitely.
You'll get a lot of cancellations on that. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. So like Friday and Saturday nights are popular, but you also don't want to compete with like an event at the convention that may or may not be a gaming event, but it's going to take people away. Like, I do a lot of like multi-table events where there's like 30 seats, amongst a few tables, and scheduling that at the same time as like, some famous actor or whatever is doing a thing. It could be hard to fill the seats just because everybody's in line for this thing across the convention. But other than attendance, as long as you can fill your 4, 5, 6, 7 seats, I don't think time matters other than that purpose, because as long as you guys are all there, it's going to be pretty good. I mean, I guess there's quieter times. Sundays are quieter, but then attendance could be hard.
Yeah, I pick times based on what makes sense for me, honestly. Right, because because I have to, and I've actually, one of my game hole events is not full because I had to pick a time that was best for me, and it didn't seem like best for anyone else. But I like running 8 a.m. games on like Thursdays and Fridays if I can do it, because a lot of people who want a game, they're getting excited about it, and then in the middle of the day they meet friends and they got stuff going on, and they suddenly decide that they want to go out and party tonight, so they're going to skip that 8 p.m. game they had. that 8 to midnight game or whatever. And so late evening games I don't tend to do because there's so much other things that people want to do. They want to go to the block party or
Okay.
they want to have some other thing that's going on. So I try to keep them morning and then mid afternoon just to. But that's a personal preference. And again, I want to go to the dealer hall. I want to do things. So I try to work around my own schedule. I want to eat, so I work around that.
Of course. So do you guys ever get money for doing this ever? Does money ever come your way?
I have never gotten money. I've only gotten in for free.
Okay.
And I've had travel paid for, which I never actually turned in any information for anyway. So no.
Oh, okay.
I've gone to conventions where you get a piece of the tickets, but that's like nothing. I mean, that's nothing, right? I mean,
yeah, nothing. Okay. So I think the perks of getting in for free or travel would be the biggest ones. That's possible.
Yeah, it's almost like a vibe, like people who go to concerts. It's like you're amongst your kin, really. So there is a thing about that, just being around like-minded people, being able to talk between games, that makes it kind of worth the hassle of either payment or travel or.
Of course, yeah. I was just curious if that was just ever came your way.
Sometimes you get those sweet badges that say GM on it, and then you're special.
Oh, there you go. So it's more like the street cred than anything.
Yeah,
right? You're paying. You can't. You can't buy that, right?
Look how awesome I am.
So, yeah. All right. So okay, let's actually talk a little bit about preparation. Now, this is not just about one shots, but like, how do you guys actually choose what adventure to run? Like, what are the main things to look for? Because like, obviously one shots, right? But specifically to a con game, what do you look for in a one shot that are kind of the most successful? And I know that, Carl, you specifically pretty much make your one shots, right?
Yep.
For the con games mainly, but outside of that, like, what would you kind of look for? Like, what makes a one shot a good convention one shot? I guess, Chris, what do you look for?
I think something that's self-contained. There's a lot of times. Like some of the Adventures League stuff for 5e, it's part of a large storyline, and you may or may not understand what's going on if you didn't play other modules in that storyline. So those are good because they're Adventures League, and they're they're going to be decently written and well laid out. But the story itself may be hard to follow if you haven't played more of the modules in that line. So I like the ones that are self-contained. I write all my own too now though.
Okay.
I don't. But I used to just run. It was mostly Adventure League stuff, and I would just pick the ones that I was interested in the most when I picked other people's material, because there's some amount of passion or interest that shows through when you're running it. But laid out, if it's somebody else's, like there's ones that have a certain layout where it's easy for GM to read material, like stat blocks and encounter layouts, maps. It's just like I don't know what a good word for it, but it's just very well laid out for it to be read at the table on a paper, as opposed to having to find everything in text.
Okay, and now is that something you just got to look through and find, or is there often you think people create ones that are like that? Like,
if you're running a game that's part of like a league system, most of them will have like a layout that's a standard layout that they use, so you'll know. If you've ever run like an Adventures League or a Pathfinder Society or something, you'll be able to trust that it's laid out in a pretty much universal method for that league play.
Okay.
Those are pretty much, you can just assume it's going to be laid out that way. And if it's outside those systems, you do have to like look around first, kind of get a feel for how the information is presented.
And are there any like tweaks that you would do, like as far as like, okay, I got a one shot, it's not perfect. Like, would you trim away stuff and maybe like get all the relevant stuff really like at one page to make it easy, things like that?
Yeah, I do that I always bring my tablet with me, and I use OneNote, and I create like a OneNote thing for it, and it has like monsters on one tab and items on one tab, and relative information, and I can just change the tab, so I have pretty much quick access to everything.
What about you, Carl? I mean, like you said, you guys both write these con games. So how do you kind of formulate your games to make it really fit into a convention space?
So there's really a couple of things that I really try to do. And the first is flexibility. You drive things through these scenes, and you have enough scenes to get what you need to get done, and maybe one extra in case people are going really fast. But then you also have it so you can pull scenes out or do a quick encounter if you're in Savage Worlds, or do something
Yeah.
that you can adjust. I've got 5 rooms, and 2 rooms have important things, and the other ones were important, but they're not important enough to keep if people are going slow. So flexibility in the layout so you can fit that 4-hour time slot. And then the second one is I like to write adventures that work for multiple play styles. So I like to have an adventure that has some exploration, has some thinking in it, sometimes some some good combat, but a lot of things for different play styles, so that when people come to the table, they're all different, right? And there's something that they can pick up on and say, oh, this is what I shine on, because, oh, you have a face character, and there's going to be a thing where I go talky talk. I wanna do that. Now, some folks take a different approach, and they do the game maybe is for one play style, but then they make sure in the description for the convention event, they say, this will be combat heavy with very little social interaction. So they'll put that right into the description. I don't do that. I just try to make my events so that multiple people, and I'm not always successful, but multiple play styles can have their little bit of spotlight or a little bit of stuff that they enjoy. So those are kind of the 2 major aspects that I kind of go towards when I'm trying to do a convention event. And then, obviously it's something fun. You got to have some kind of hooky thing that people get excited to say, So I'm not writing the shopping adventure for the downtime in your D&D adventure, right? You have to have something that's kind of got a beginning, middle, and end, all in the same vein. Obviously, that's kind of an obvious thing.
Okay. So what about other prep? Like, again, kind of specifically to a convention game versus other things. How else do you do like prep for these? And do you ever do like a trial run, I guess? Like things like that?
Playtest. Oh, yeah. I think almost every event I've ever done, I've playtested. And you guys actually, I've
playtested everyone, yeah.
Yeah, you've playtested some of them. Yeah, for sure. Or I've run them on like an online convention where it's a little looser, and people didn't travel, and they didn't they didn't spend all their money to get there. So from preparing for it, I really spend a lot more time thinking about the scenes and how things are blocked out than I might for a home game. Because a home game, if it goes a little long and you guys like to talk to the shop owner and take a little more time, no big deal. We'll hit it on a high note, and then we'll hit the combat next time. But for a convention game, it's really, I have to know what my outs are and what's, they're coming in to do this. Okay, it's taking too long. What's that out? Where do I go next? And that's part of the building of the adventure. So things like raw dungeon crawls are a hard one to pull off. You can do it, right? Because people in OSR do it all the time at conventions. But it's tougher because you kind of have that a little bit too open. People can go anywhere and wander, and they'll spend an hour at a door, and you're like, oh my God, I got to pull out some rooms or whatever. So I try to write the adventure in that tab. To what Chris was talking about, I have all the monsters in the notes. I keep everything in a 3-ring binder, all in protected plastic sheets, so I don't bring a tablet with me or a computer, but I have all the monsters statted out right where they needed to be. I have all the key things right in the text, so there's no, oh, this is a bugbear. Well, bugbear's on page 32 in the player's or in the monster manual. It's fine. No, bugbear is going to be fully statted out, everything there, notes on how I'm going to use them.
Yeah.
The bugbear is going to do this, and then this, and then this, just so I understand when I'm in the heat of things, what's going to happen. Because, again, as soon as the game hits the players, all bets are off, right? So you better know what you're doing.
Chris, what about you? Do you do any like special preparation for convention games, or do you do dry runs, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I play test with my weekly, ergo monthly group that whenever we can. I sometimes I've started to do this thing where I run them on VTT when I can. So it's like another iteration through. Plus, since I work in VTT, that helps me out in other ways. So I would say I get like 1 or 2 good play tests in, and then edits. And like I actually do bring, like Carl does with the three-ring binder. I bring like a printed copy as well. I just hope to never use it. It's mostly if my tablet falls in water or something.
Okay.
Just because I like the tablet for speed
Ease
of use. Like text search on a tablet is so much faster than visual eye search.
So it really seems like, I also assume that most of the things that you're running are pretty railroaded, right?
No,
quote unquote
no,
railroaded.
not really.
Right?
No.
Oh, okay. So sometimes it's more open, but it's
open, but it's just like anything else. There's the quantum ogre effect.
Yeah.
You have to deal with.
So it's the illusion. I mean, we've talked about this. It's kind of the illusion of choice in a lot of ways. But it really seems like for a convention game, over prepping is a good thing. Like it really seems like you want to have all of your ducks in orders, including add some geese in there. I don't know, a raccoon too. Like have everything in order, right? It seems like over prepping is the name of the game here, to be completely on top of everything, even compared to like normal games.
Yeah, you prep more than normal games because I mean, shooting from the hip is fun, and you have to, right? You have to ad lib in these things. But if you come in and all you're doing is ad libbing off of 3 bullet points, it's going to be a lot tougher in a convention game because the environment's different. It's like, like with my home game, if I've got some stuff and one of the bullet items doesn't make sense anymore, it's like, hey, why don't we take a break? I need to go get a water. It's a little tougher sometimes in a convention game to say, oh, well, stop for a minute. I got to do my thoughts because I didn't really prepare for anything. So anyway.
Okay. All right, now we've talked about this before. We have episodes that talked about it, but let's talk props. Is there too many props? I mean, I know you guys are both prop guys, but yeah, let's open up to you, Chris. Like, what is your thoughts on props, and are there too many props?
There are more props than I can afford to make. Yes.
Okay.
So far, I haven't run into a limit of physically having it. I thought I had one on my desk here, but so last year at GameHoleCon, we had a multi-table event. And I had invitations for like the guests at a dinner party, pre-gen archetype cards, some like handout stuff. And I think maybe it's like an ego thing or whatever, but anytime that I have lots of props and if they are good props, you get a lot of attaboys for it, and like, oh, I really like that. That's really, above and beyond. And it really made it feel more tactile or more, real to them. I would say mostly, the only time that there's too many is when you're spending more time on your props than you are on the actual quality of your adventure or, prepping or something like that.
So props for you should always be done after you've really, really, really nailed down all the adventure stuff, right?
Yes.
Like don't even think about props until you're like done and you have everything satted out. What about you, Carl?
From a prop standpoint, I kind of focus more on, I have themed character sheets, so everybody gets a character sheet that's themed to the game. I have handouts, with like, the letter from the mayor or whatever, stuff like that as needed. But because carrying stuff around is tough, I don't do a lot of very tactile props. Like, I brought I'm trying to think, like, I played a game once where the guy brought wands for everybody because it was kind of a thing. And that's awesome and cool because then we could take our wands and do things. But he was carrying he carried a huge case with him. I just can't do that. So I love props. I think it's fun to play in a game. I am not that great at it. It's handouts and themed bennies and themed cards and themed, character sheets that I do that people can take away with them when they're done. Well, not my bennies. You got to give my bennies back, but but the character sheets, they can take those with them, and they at least got the.
That's a good tip. Feel. Like having some that are easy, just to kind of like let players take with them, like right.
Yeah, I would say that a predominant number of my props come from Sticker Mule when they have a deal. So they'll have like a sticker deal, and I'm like, oh, great, I'm getting stickers for my game.
Oh, okay.
And those are like cheap, maybe $19, $29. That's usually where their 2 price points are. And then they can take them home, and they're flat.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, that's a good hot tip. Okay, well, speaking about hot tips, let's actually let's talk logistics because I think logistics are just such a big part of this, it seems, and we've kind of touched on it. But so. Yeah, I mean, hot tips about traveling to the con. I mean, I'm talking about just everything involved, like transportation, hotel, bag, like the type of bags that you use. Like, I just want to hear about this, Chris. So what is your kind of, again, like tips or even pitfalls involving transportation, hotels, bags, those kind of things?
First thing is coordinate with, if you're going with a number of people or a group or anything else, is first get that together. Know who's going and who you can work with. Hotels through the whatever portal the convention have are usually the best deals.
Okay.
They get like block up pricing for a block of hotel rooms, and it's usually a good price. Is usually not a reason to look around, especially if it's a major convention, because there won't be anything around anyway. Everybody, like Gen Con or GameholeCon, all the stuff close by is going to be part of that block system most likely.
So the convention itself will actually block out for the game masters.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can carpool with people and stuff, that's why you want to know who's going, because often you'll need, if you're getting a hotel room in the block, you're probably going to be walking distance or maybe a couple Ubers, but you can split those with people if you know who you're going with. You probably won't need a rental car if you're going in that type of a situation. As far as like bags and stuff, I try to keep everything in transportable in like a small, I'm going to say messenger size bag. Really, it's really just a little bit bigger than just call it like a RPG book, like a D&D size RPG book. That would be like the biggest width and height. So it's going to hold a couple books, tablet, dice, whatever. A lot of people actually sell those they're kind of like side slung messenger bags. And I usually put that in my backpack, which is my actual carry-on or personal bag, I should say. And then, the one carry-on, and I try to slim down. And like I said, all my props are usually paper-based, so stickers or printouts or something like that. So they're all lightweight, and they pack well. And then leave a little bit of room for, you're probably going to look around and buy something or get something. So have like either another bag that you're going to bring folded up inside of it, or leave room in your main bag for whatever you get to take back.
Okay. So, Carl, what about you?
So a couple of tips, get into the hotel lottery or whatever's going on with your convention early. And that can be a problem, because some conventions we're talking months and months and months and months in advance, and you may not even know you're going. But if you think you're going, get your badge, get into the hotel lottery, then you can be in a hotel close by. I am not in a hotel close by GameholeCon. I'm 13 minutes away, but that's okay. It's just the way it is. But the other thing I'll say from a transportation, you need less than you think. So if you've got a stack of D&D books you're thinking you're going to bring with you and, fill up a backpack or fill up your suitcase, chances are you're not going to be pulling out your Tasha's Cauldron just for the sake of it to hang out and read it at the convention. It's not going to happen. You're going to end up buying something new anyway that you want to read. And so you need less books than you think you do, especially if you're a player. If you're a game master, you may want to bring a bunch of books, but you need less than you think too, because most players are going to be okay if you make a ruling at the table and you figure, and that's just the way it is. You're not going to be pulling out your rule book and reading it at the table anyway. I guess there's certain circumstances, but in general, no. I mean, it slows the game down, and you just make a ruling and move on with your life. So, so you need less. So if you've got bags and bags full of stuff, you're probably doing it wrong, especially since you're going to want to bring bags and bags of stuff with you after you go to the dealer hall. So that's I think is important. Get into the hotel lottery early. Take less than you really think you need. If you can travel by car, then it's easier. But not everybody has that luxury to be able to drive about less than 13 hours to get to a convention or something like that. Some really do have to fly, and you got to keep that in mind.
Of course. Okay, so we've signed up for a game as a game master. We've gotten there. What is the actual, walk us through just kind of what the setup process is like. Like, as you have a game at 11 o'clock, what does it look like, Carl? Kind of just walk us through that.
So I'm always early. I think it's important to be on time to your event, be there a little early. Most conventions I've gone to, they stagger things, and I very rarely have come to a table where the game is going long. Usually people are pretty good about that. So I try to get there early so that when the players start showing up, I'm not pulling stuff out. And so I'm really fast at setting up. because again, I don't have a lot of complicated miniatures or props or stuff like that. I get the book open, I pull out the character sheets, I spread them out, I put my little placard up that says "Here's the game." I put out the little QR codes so that they can come to the website and all that kind of stuff. I do use a GM screen, so I take the GM screen, I get everything behind it, I take out my dice, get my bennies ready, get the dice, and it's fast. It doesn't take a lot of time for me because I don't have all those figurines and stuff like that that you have to deal with. Now, if you have to, then you definitely don't want to get there at the minute of the show and have all your players sitting there waiting for you to get everything figured out. You really probably should come a little early. Whole nother issue is if you got people going long before you, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah.
But I won't get into that.
Let's come back to that. But like, what is actually like when you're arriving there? Like, do you already have a map ahead of time? Like, do you check in with a desk somewhere? Like, like what is actually like? I really want to know what the process is like there.
Well, it might vary, but most of the conventions
Okay.
I've been to, you get your table assignment well in advance.
Okay.
So just like the players know where they're going, you know where you're
Yeah.
going, and you show up there and you play your game, and it's usually
So you just walk in. You don't have to check in normally, and you have a map, so you already kind of know where you're going. And
yeah.
just
If you
kinda
don't
set
know
up.
where you're going, then like a Gen Con, they have the game HQ. You would just go check with them to see where you're going, and
Okay.
if there's any problems with the table, that's another reason to be there early. Because if you're expecting a table to be in a certain state and it's not, well, then you can get a
Oh.
chance to go to the hall captains or whatever they call them in their convention.
Okay.
You know, like some event before, you took all the chairs and put them in the hallway, and you have no idea where your chairs are. You know, it's time to go talk to the game HQ
Yeah,
and
yeah.
see if they can help you out. But generally, you just show up to your table.
Okay.
That's, you know,
All
you're
right.
playing like everyone else. I don't know, Chris,
Chris, any
other
other kind of big
conventions?
roadblocks here that you can think of?
So I would say there's two types that I've been to, and the one is there's ample time between when one game ends and when one game starts, and you have time to calmly set up and take 10 minutes to an hour, depending on how long they left between games, and really kind of mentally prepare and get things all how you want them. And then there's the other kind where the game ended literally when yours starts and you're standing there waiting for them to clear. And because, I mean, sometimes you do know ahead of time because you can look at the schedule and you'll see, but often games carry over too. So I just go with like the common denominator of I probably won't have much time, so I want to minimize my setup. And then if I do have an hour, well, great, I can just do it slowly.
Okay.
One thing I do like 50% of the time is I'll have the map already made, but like this Game Whole Con, I'm running 4 games, and I don't have 4 large printed maps, so I'm going to have to draw a map because I have like a Chessex like map thing that I can fold up and bring with me. So at one of my games, I will have to erase. I'll pre-draw the first one, and at some point, I'm going to have to erase it. And I usually do it at the table between those times, as long as I have that larger gap between games, 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
But I'm kind of like with Carl. It's real minimal. I think it's pretty quick. I don't bring any books with me. Like I said, I have my tablet. I have multiple PDFs on my tablet. I can search very quickly if I need to find something. So it's just I sit down, put up some kind of map out, get my envelope with all the props or whatever, pre-gens and everything, like in a manila envelope, so it's organized with the game name on it.
Yeah.
Take that out, set it up, and then I just sit down and I'm done.
Okay, so you definitely want to be, like I said, if this goes with the over prepping, like be as organized as possible so you can just open your bag and everything is like where it is and you can just put it out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I can't tell you how when I play a game and the game master is kind of like, well, let me see what I got here. I think, oh, well, wait a second, I'm missing one of the sheets.
Yeah.
Well, the guy in the previous session must have taken that sheet, so we only have 5 sheets. We need 6. Let me kind of write down. It's like, oh my God, dude, you're just like, and you spend 20 minutes just trying to figure out what's going on before you start playing. I think Chris and I would probably both agree. The faster you can get things going, to get ready, get the players engaged in the game, the better. You don't want them twiddling their thumbs for 20 minutes while you try to figure your stuff out.
Right. So hot tip, accordion folder is what we're saying, right?
Yeah, that wouldn't hurt.
Okay. So another here's a big one. Like, I just want to know generally, like, are any tips specifically in running a convention game that's different than, say, a normal one shot, Chris?
If you're new at it, keep it simple. Don't like try to do the coolest, most prop driven, complex adventure of a new system you just wrote with a new adventure you haven't played. Try to keep it so that there's less number of variables. Most of what you can control.
Yeah.
So if you're most familiar with 5e, run that. If you're most familiar with something else, whatever you can do to get some experiences under your belt and then expand out later. There's going to be many conventions in the future.
Okay.
Lots of other opportunities.
So just like maybe do 1 or 2 games and do what you're most familiar with and kind of take a minimalist approach. Okay.
And play games too. If you sign up for, like, when you're not GMing, sign up some and watch how the other people do it. Just
for sure.
Kind of get a feel that way too.
Kind of like with writers, like you should read a lot, right? Before you write. Okay. Carl, any other tips here, like about just actually running the game? Like any other kind of big pitfalls you want to shout out, or?
If you're new to it, just be flexible. I mean, just remember, if you're getting nervous and everything, just remember everybody's there to have a good time. You included. Everybody came to have a good time, and if you're new to it, the things Chris said are absolutely true. Pick a system where you're not going to have to, kind of figure it out on the fly. But just be flexible. Players throw you a curveball, say, okay, let's run with that. And it's okay. Don't get nervous. They want to have fun too. And if you need to kind of gradually pull them back onto the rails, as you say, you can do it. But, just it's supposed to be fun. And I think some of the funnest moments I had was as a player when I was playing with a group and we just went left field and the game master said, okay, we're in left field now. And he told us, he said, we're off the map. So let's just see where this goes and let's figure it out. And it's like, it was
the chaos kind of.
It was a Delta Green game, and it was like I don't think he planned on killing us all, with the big bad guy, and so for some reason it just didn't turn out. We decided we were going to take a different direction. We'll take a different approach to this problem. So,
okay. Okay. Now I think we touched on this in the very beginning, Carl. I think you brought this up, but. Do you have any kind of ways that you deal with the kind of new players compared to seasoned ones? Because I just, like you said before, like at convention, you just have such a mixed bag and they're all strangers mostly, right? Maybe some friends join up, but how do you kind of dealing with new players in season 1? Like, do you have any other ways that you deal with that, or tips, or?
Well, so if there's 2 different things, right? There's new players to RPGs, and then there's new players to your system.
Yeah, I guess I'm more talking about system here.
Yeah, so if that's the case,
RPGs,
understand the core mechanics and get the players up to speed as fast as you can. Don't take 20 minutes to explain all the rules. 5 minutes, here's the basic mechanic, like we can with Savage Worlds, right? The basic mechanics you can take in 4 minutes, and then layer on. Oh, we're into a combat. Did you guys know that you could do a test against that? Did you know that, oh, I want to really attack this guy and I want to do it really hard. Oh, maybe you're doing a wild attack. Kind of bring them along as you go, as opposed to spending 20 minutes explaining the rules up front. Because they're not going to do all the nuances anyway. They're new to the system. They're going to just stick to the core stuff anyway. So I don't know if that's really advice or not, but it's something that I try to do.
Well, so like, do you ever have new? I mean, I can't imagine like never having played an RPG before and then going and signing up for one of these games.
Oh yeah,
like,
I've had that.
Seems you've had players come that are just like, I've never even played D. I've never rolled die before. Like, I'm just here to see what this is about.
I've had parents bring their kids, and it's like the kids have played a little bit of D&D with dad and mom, and this is their first convention where they're really in a hardcore 4-hour event. I've had that, right? And I've had like 13-year-olds who've been playing very little, but they wanted to go to convention and their parents let them. So it happens. It happens. And, the key thing is just just understand that they don't don't start talking about NPCs and, hey, roll your initiative. Well, how do I don't even know what that means. Can you help explain it? Recognize
don't take for granted. Like, don't take for granted. Do you ever like, I mean, so as far as a tip goes, like when people go, do you ever ask like who's played Savage Worlds before or who's played RPGs before? Like, do you? Okay.
Every time. Yeah. Chris probably the same, right?
Only I ask the opposite though. I ask who hasn't played. I do it the other way around.
Oh, okay. So what about you, Chris? Have you had new players to systems? Like, how do you kind of deal with the maybe experience gap or dealing with totally new players?
Yeah, I mean, usually, if I recall, there's like one new player every time at least, all the way down to zero. Like, I don't even have dice with me. Type like, I don't know what. Do I need dice? Like, yeah, you do.
Okay.
Uh, so
Monopoly
I
D6s, you mean? Yeah, like they don't
yeah,
even.
like
Yeah.
uh, I don't like to. I mean, I like to teach the games. I actually do play to teach, but I don't like to teach the rules at the first time they play. So
Okay.
it's more like I think it will like water down the experience for the rest of the table if you do that, because this one person's getting the spotlight. So I just tell them like, okay, that's fine. You're playing a mechanic or whatever they're playing. All you have to do is you tell me what you think your mechanic will do, and I will translate it into game mechanics for you and tell you what to roll.
Yeah.
And that's all they have to worry about. And then afterwards, I can tell them where to get information if they like it, if they want to learn more, that kind of thing. And then they pick it up slowly over time.
I mean, are there ever would you ever consider doing a game of like this is for new players only, or this is for experienced players only? Would you ever kind of put that descriptor on first? You think?
Yeah,
Or have you ever done that?
I've never done an experienced one only. I've only done new players welcome.
Yeah,
Okay, but not new players only. Like new players welcome.
We've had
Yeah.
that one too.
Okay. What about you, Carl?
Well, I do almost new players welcome for every game that I run, but
Of course.
conventions
Yeah.
do have categories usually. You know, this is for inexperienced, new players, some experience. You know,
Okay.
I don't know what they all use different terms, you know, veterans or whatever. So if you really don't feel comfortable running a game and teaching people rules, you are more than welcome to. Most conventions let you say this is for veteran players, but recognize you're still going to get a new player, even when that happens. There's going to be somebody
Of course.
who
It's
reads
not,
that,
it's not an iron wall. Yeah.
and they say, "Oh, I played D&D once. I'm an experienced player," and they'll sign up, right? And so you still have to deal with that all the time. And so you know, it's a different. It's just you guys got to deal with it, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. So
I mean, I just imagine as like a new, a relatively new game master, new to doing cons, like kind of taking some of that element out might make it easier, but right, of like having to teach new people or deal with.
So the reason that I just have them like do what a mechanic does or whatever is because, and I could be wrong on this, but my assumptions are they're playing at a convention and they haven't played before and they don't have a lot of experience because maybe they're introverted or shy and they don't really seek it out. So I want to make it as low bar to entry as possible. Is like, you just tell me what you think you should do, and then I will explain how that works in this game. And that's it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So closing out, let's just like any other just kind of general convention. I'm just opening up the floor here. Like, do you have any other kind of tips for just the convention in general, enjoying yourself or buying stuff or food, anything you can think of that you want to kind of talk about, Chris?
Yeah, if you have money, there's always really good deals for like the vendor hall or whatever. So if you spend some time to do at least a quick walkthrough there. If you are new at conventions, don't pack your schedule full of games. Give some time to like walk around because there'll be stuff you didn't know you could do or you didn't know you can sign up for, or you weren't aware it was there, or just like people watch or whatever. But leave gaps so you can do that. If you are interested in the industry, working in the industry, or know people in the industry, or just people that you only see at conventions, leave time at night for hanging out with those people. So if you're in a game from 8 to midnight and the people that you were there to see are like, well, we're going to tavern here, and they're like, well, sorry, I'm in my game, because you didn't think about that ahead of time.
Yeah, I think the key thing is don't burn yourself out. I think that's Chris was alluding to that is even like a game master. I'm running 4 events, and that's like the limit. And I left all of Friday night basically open because yeah, well, I knew I'd be burning out. I was hoping maybe have a chance to run into some people. I know there's like a Savage Worlds thing supposed to be going on that evening. Nice. And so I just wanted to leave some space. Don't burn yourself out. So you have time to go to the dealer hall. You've got time to, like you said, talk to friends, or even just sit and let your feet, this is a Gen Con thing. Gen Con is so big. You have to give yourself time to just sit and let your feet rest because you've walked from one side of Indianapolis to the other side of Indianapolis. That's what it feels like
Okay.
sometimes. So
Yeah.
just realize that you're not a super person and it's supposed to be fun, and you don't want to, if it's not fun because you're tired and you're not enjoying the game you're in because all you can think about is when is this thing over so I can go to bed. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
fun either, right? So
Yeah,
pace
that's
yourself.
like a good tip for traveling in general, right? To never overpack your schedule. Always leave time to explore and find new things and relax.
Yeah.
But you guys were both going to be at GameholeCon, right, together. So,
Yep.
Okay, cool. And just one other thought I had, like, what about food? Is there often like a lot of food in the hall, or do you order out? Or as a game master, do you have like snacks with you? Like, what are any kind of food things, Carl?
Well, I bring snacks because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. So I do have snacks. I do have a drink. Most convention halls are convention centers, and so they do have food.
Okay.
So usually it's not the best food. It's not the cheapest food, but it's food. And that's another reason you leave time. If you want to go off campus and go grab a bite at one of the local eateries, well, then you're going to need an hour and a half to 2 hours to do that because everyone else is doing that from the convention too.
Yeah,
So I tend to try to have stuff so that if I have to eat and I don't have time, something happens to go and actually have a real dinner or lunch, I've got at least something to eat in my stomach.
Got some snack bars, got some bag of nuts, something.
Yeah,
Banana.
nuts. Trail mix is always a favorite.
Of course. Yeah. Chris,
Candy,
you have any thoughts on this?
candy bars if you have to.
Okay.
So, yeah, I try to keep whatever I need in my bags, like like beef jerky, Slim Jims. I don't know, whatever kind of dense calories, small things I can have. But it's really dependent on the convention center itself. Some are really loose with letting you bring food in. Some are like, we're going to search your bags for it, and you can only buy stuff from our
Wow.
concessions, which are majorly overpriced. So I just do like a don't ask, don't tell policy. I just put my stuff at the bottom of my bag and bring it with me.
Kind of hide it. Wear a vest underneath your shirt packed full of Slim Jims and carrots.
Get some vertical sausages and make sure they're taped around you. Yeah,
or you could just open your shirt dramatically. And
you're a food mule. You're trying to get it across the border.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that was pretty illuminating. Do we have any other closing thoughts? I'll throw it to you, Chris.
I'll just say, if you haven't been to a convention, I recommend you try it. It's a different experience. Maybe sign up for a game you haven't played before with a different system, or there's board games there. Just walk around. It's always worth going. There's usually something local, so start there if you like it. Maybe look into bigger after that.
Carl?
It just goes to the GMing, right? Preparing and doing a convention. If you have any inkling, you game master for your local group, and you'd say it'd be fun just to have other players, do it. Just do it and have a good time. Do the best you can, and again, these are your people, and unless you are purposely trying to screw it up, chances are you'll do fine.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Eric, for running that. Appreciate that.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I learned a lot.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you got something out of it. I know I did. I learned a whole bunch. Remember to drop by masteringtherepg.com to learn about all the projects and what we're working on, and contact and support us. Email gamemaster@masteringtherepg.com if you have questions, need some advice, or have something adjudicated, as we almost had tonight. We almost had an adjudication. So
Law and Order sound. Ba-bow.
Yeah. Anyway, if you like the show, please help us with a positive review wherever you get your fine podcasts. And we love doing the show. We'd like to keep doing it. So any love you send our way, will make it that much more worth it. So once again, I'm Carl with Eric and Chris. Say goodbye, guys.
Happy
Goodbye.
gaming.